Exclusive breaking news for the Viking Nation. What just went down in London is about to shake this franchise to its core, and you're not ready for the chaos that's brewing inside US Bank Stadium right now. 5 bombshells dropped in less than 72 hours, and each one could redefine the entire trajectory of this season. A crucial field goal vanished into thin air under suspicious circumstances. A star receiver got publicly called out by the franchise cornerstone. A coach dropped the hammer on immaturity in front of the whole world. A quarterback battle is heating up during the bye week with the future on the line. And an elite left tackle mysteriously disappeared at halftime, leaving fans in panic mode. Every single one of these stories cuts deep into the heart of this team, and the ripple effects are just beginning. The Vikings are 5-0 and sitting pretty, but beneath the surface, there's tension, controversy, and decisions that can either launch the squad into Super Bowl contention or send everything crashing down in flames. This is the kind of week that separates pretenders from contenders, and Viking Nation needs to know exactly what's happening right now. So if you bleed purple and gold more than you hate the Packers, drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and let's dive into the first revelation that's about to detonate inside this locker room. Hold on tight, because this first story is the kind of injustice that makes your blood boil and leaves you screaming at the screen. Picture this. The Vikings are locked in a brutal battle with the Cleveland Browns in London. One possession game, every snap matters. And Will Reichard steps up to attempt a 51-yard field goal that could tie the game at 17 and completely change the momentum. The kick goes up, the trajectory looks perfect, the distance is there. And then, out of nowhere, the ball veers sharply to the right like someone yanked it with an invisible string. Fans are confused, commentators are stunned, and Reichard is standing there with his hands on his hips wondering what the hell just happened. Turns out, the ball didn't miss, it hit the Skycam cable suspended over the field, an obstruction that, according to the official NFL rulebook, should have resulted in an automatic do-over. That's right, the play should have been replayed, the clock reset, and Reichard given a second chance to knock it through. But guess what? The refs didn't call it. They just moved on like nothing happened, robbed the Vikings of 3 crucial points, and forced Minnesota to play from behind for the rest of the game. This is the same rulebook that clearly states, if a loose ball in play strikes a video board, guide wire, Skycam, or any other object, the ball shall be dead immediately, and the down shall be replayed at the previous spot. No gray area, no interpretation. Just a blatant miscall that cost the Vikings points and nearly cost them the game. And here's the kicker, this isn't even the first time this happened. Just hours later, the same exact scenario played out in the Cowboys-Jets game, and once again, the officials misapplied the rule. It's a league-wide problem, and the Vikings got the short end of the stick in a game that went down to the wire. Carson Wentz had to lead a last-minute game-winning drive, hitting Jefferson and Addison for a touchdown with 25 seconds left, just to salvage a victory that should have been much easier. Can you imagine if they hadn't pulled that off? The headline would have been about a stolen game, a blown call, and 3 points that disappeared into thin air. And let's not forget, this comes just 1 week after the Vikings played an entire game in a stadium with a broken scoreboard in one end zone. What's next? Playing on a field with no yard markers? The NFL's equipment issues and officiating failures are becoming a serious problem, and the Vikings are suffering because of it. Do you think the league will address this? Do you believe the refs will be held accountable? Or is this just another example of small market teams getting screwed, while the big names get all the calls? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because Viking Nation deserves answers. If you're as fired up about this robbery as we are, hit that like button and let the world know that we don't forget when our team gets cheated. And just when you think that's the wildest part of this London trip, wait until you hear what went down inside the locker room between 2 of the team's most important offensive weapons. But hold on, as shocking as that officiating disaster was, the next revelation cuts even deeper into the fabric of this team, and it involves the 2 most explosive receivers on the roster. Justin Jefferson, the undisputed king of the Vikings offense, the man who carries this team on his back week after week, just publicly called out Jefferson and Addison in a way that sent shockwaves through the entire organization. We're not talking about a subtle hint or a vague comment in a press conference. Jefferson straight up admitted that he had to pull Addison aside and have a serious conversation about maturity, professionalism, and what it means to be part of this team. The reason? Addison missed a walk-through during the week leading up to the Browns game, a violation of team standards that got him benched for the entire first quarter in London. Now, missing a walkthrough might not sound like a big deal to casual fans, but in the NFL, where preparation is everything and every detail matters, it's a massive breach of trust. Kevin O'Connell made the call to sit Addison for a full quarter as a form of accountability, and Jefferson, who's usually calm and composed, felt the need to step in and mentor his young teammate. "I definitely had a talk with Ya," Jefferson said after the game. "It's all about growing up, being part of the team, and knowing what's at stake. I just need to get better at keeping him under my wing and making sure his head is in the right place." That's leadership. That's a veteran taking responsibility for the younger guys and making sure they understand the gravity of the situation. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Jordan Addison isn't just some random second-string receiver. He's a former first-round pick, a guy with elite talent, and someone who's supposed to be the future of this offense alongside Jefferson. He just came off a 3-game suspension to start the season for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy, stemming from a DUI arrest in July 2024, where he eventually pleaded no contest to a wet, reckless charge. The fact that he's already back in hot water for missing team obligations raises serious questions about his focus, his discipline, and his ability to stay on track. Jefferson even admitted that he needs to do a better job of mentoring Addison and keeping him accountable, which suggests that this isn't the first time issues have come up. And let's be real, if Justin Jefferson, one of the most respected players in the league, feels the need to publicly address this, it means the situation was serious enough to warrant that level of attention. The Vikings are 5-0, but championship teams don't win because of talent alone. They win because everyone is locked in, everyone is on the same page, and everyone is willing to sacrifice for the greater good. When a key player starts slipping on the little things, it creates cracks in the foundation, and those cracks can widen fast. Now, to Addison's credit, he responded in the best way possible by catching the game-winning touchdown with 25 seconds left, a 12-yard strike from Carson Wentz that sealed the victory and sent the Vikings home. With a perfect 5-0 record, he finished with 5 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown, and after the game, he said all the right things. "I never want to let my teammates down. They're always there for me, so I'm going to make sure I'm always there for them." But words are one thing and actions are another. Can Addison stay disciplined? Can he prove that he's worth the investment and the trust? Or is this just the beginning of a deeper pattern that could derail his career? And what does it say about the Vikings culture that a star receiver felt comfortable skipping a walkthrough in the first place? Is there a lack of accountability? Is the coaching staff being lenient? Or is this just a young player making a mistake and learning from it? These are the questions that will define Jordan Addison's future in Minnesota, and the answers will come in the weeks ahead. If you believe in second chances and think Addison can turn this around, drop a comment and let us know. But if you're worried that this is a red flag that can't be ignored, hit that like button and make your voice heard. And trust me, the next story about how Kevin O'Connell handled this situation publicly is going to blow your mind even more. And listen closely, because what comes next is a masterclass in leadership, accountability, and how a championship-caliber head coach handles controversy without letting it spiral out of control. Kevin O'Connell, the man who's turned this Vikings franchise into a legitimate Super Bowl contender, didn't shy away from the Jordan Addison situation. He confronted it head-on, explained his decision to the media, and made it crystal clear that no player, no matter how talented, is above the team's standards. When asked why Addison was benched for the first quarter of the Browns game, O'Connell didn't sugarcoat it. "Addison missed a walkthrough this week," he said bluntly. "That kind of thing is not up to our standard, and we wanted to make sure he was held accountable for it. But at the same time, he knows that. I thought he handled it professionally. He talked to the team, so they knew that whenever I gave him the opportunity to get on the field, they could count on him, and he'd make the game-winning catch. That's the perfect balance of discipline and trust, and it's exactly why O'Connell is one of the most respected coaches in the NFL. He didn't throw Addison under the bus, but he also didn't make excuses for him. He held him accountable, communicated the consequences, and then gave him a chance to redeem himself. And Addison did exactly that, catching the game-winning touchdown in the final seconds and proving that he could respond under pressure. But let's dig deeper into what this moment reveals about the Vikings culture. O'Connell has built a program based on accountability, trust, and communication. And this situation was a test of all three. By benching Addison for the first quarter, he sent a message to the entire roster. No one gets a free pass, no matter how important they are to the offense. That's the kind of message that resonates in a locker room, especially when younger players see that even a first-round pick with elite talent has to follow the same rules as everyone else. And the fact that Addison owned up to it, addressed the team, and then delivered in the clutch, that's growth, that's maturity. That's exactly what you want to see from a young player who's trying to prove he belongs. But here's the question. Does one redemption story erase the pattern of behavior that led to this moment? Addison has already served a 3-game suspension this season. He's dealt with legal issues stemming from a DUI arrest, and now he's missing team obligations. At what point does the organization start to wonder if the risk outweighs the reward? And at what point do the Vikings decide that they can't keep betting on a player who keeps putting himself in avoidable situations? O'Connell's handling of this situation buys Addison some time, but it doesn't erase the concerns. The Vikings are in win-now mode with a 5-0 record, a dynamic offense, a legitimate playoff aspiration, and they can't afford distractions. If Addison can stay focused, stay disciplined, and stay out of trouble, he has the potential to be a game changer for this team. But if he slips up again, the leash is going to get a lot shorter, and the consequences are going to be a lot more severe. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Addison revealed after the game that he's planning to stay in the Twin Cities during the bye week to train with J.J. McCarthy, the franchise's future quarterback who's recovering from an ankle injury. That's a positive sign. A sign that he's taking his development seriously and trying to build chemistry with the guy who could be throwing him passes for the next decade. But it also raises another massive question. Who's going to be the starting quarterback when the Vikings return from the bye? Is it going to be Carson Wentz, the veteran who just led a game-winning drive in London? Or is it going to be J.J. McCarthy, the 22-year-old rookie who's been sidelined since week 2? That decision is looming large, and it's the kind of decision that could define the rest of the season. Do you think Addison has proven he deserves another chance? Do you believe O'Connell handled this the right way? Or do you think the Vikings need to be more aggressive in holding him accountable? Sound off in the comments, because this is the kind of debate that divides a fan base right down the middle. And if you're still with us, buckle up, because the next story about the quarterback controversy is going to shake this franchise to its core. But trust me, the story only gets darker from here, because the quarterback situation in Minnesota is about to become the most debated topic in the entire NFC. And the decision Kevin O'Connell makes coming out of the bye week could determine whether the Vikings make a deep playoff run or crash and burn in spectacular fashion. On one side, you have Carson Wentz, the 32-year-old veteran journeyman who just led a game-winning drive in London, hitting Jordan Addison for a clutch touchdown with 25 seconds left to secure a 21-17 victory over the Browns. Wentz finished the game looking calm, poised, and confident. And when reporters asked him if he felt like he'd earned the right to keep the starting job, he gave a measured response that revealed more than he probably intended. "I've thought a lot about the future in my life. Enough of that." Wentz said, "I'm trying to live in the moment and appreciate it. I'm going to enjoy it, get healthy, and see what happens." That's the response of a guy who's been around the block, who's been benched before, who's been traded before, and who's learned not to get too attached to any situation. Wentz knows that his time as the Vikings starter could be coming to an end, and he's trying to stay focused on what he can control. But here's the reality. Wentz was never supposed to be more than a bridge quarterback, a placeholder until J.J. McCarthy was ready to take over. McCarthy, the 10th overall pick in the 2024 draft, is the future of this franchise, the guy the Vikings traded up to get, and the quarterback they believe can lead them to a Super Bowl. He was supposed to start week 1 of this season, but a severe ankle sprain in week 2 has kept him sidelined for the past 3 games. And now, as the Vikings head into their bye week, the big question is whether he'll be ready to reclaim the starting job when they face the Eagles in week 7. According to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, the plan is for McCarthy to return to practice during the bye week, get some reps, and see how he responds. If everything goes well, he could be back to full participation before the week 7 matchup against Philadelphia. But Pelissero was quick to add a critical caveat. Let's be clear, the Vikings aren't just focused on when and how quickly they can get JJ back on the field. They're also focused on when they can get him in shape and ready to play well. This isn't an easy reserve type thing. He's got a severe ankle sprain. This is a guy who not only missed his entire rookie season because of knee surgery, but also hasn't practiced on back-to-back days since before the Week 1 opener this year. They want, and they do intend, for J.J. McCarthy to get back in the starting lineup, but they want to be smart about how they do it. That last sentence is the key. They do intend for J.J. McCarthy to get back in the starting lineup. That's not speculation. That's not a maybe. That's a clear signal that the Vikings' long-term plan is to hand the reins back to McCarthy as soon as he's healthy enough to handle the load. But here's the complication. Carson Wentz just won a game in dramatic fashion, and the Vikings are 5-0. Do you really bench the guy who's winning games in favor of a 22-year-old who hasn't practiced consistently in months? Do you risk disrupting the chemistry and momentum of a team that's rolling? Or do you stick with the plan, trust that McCarthy is the future, and make the switch before it becomes an even bigger controversy? Kevin O'Connell didn't tip his hand when asked about the quarterback decision after the game. I'm really excited that we won today, and we're going to move forward into this bye and get as healthy as possible at every position and attack that in the next games, he said. That's classic coach speak, but it also suggests that the decision hasn't been made yet, and O'Connell is going to evaluate every factor before committing to a direction. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Jordan Addison, the same guy who just caught the game-winning touchdown from Wentz, told reporters that he's planning to stay in the building during the bye week and work out with J.J. McCarthy. That's a not-so-subtle hint that the locker room believes McCarthy is coming back, and the receivers are already preparing for that transition. So, what's the right move? If you're a Vikings fan, who do you want under center in Week 7? The veteran who's winning games right now, or the future franchise quarterback who hasn't played in weeks? Do you ride the hot hand, or do you stick with the long-term plan? And what happens if O'Connell makes the switch and McCarthy struggles? What if Wentz gets benched and the offense stalls? What if this decision becomes the turning point that either launches the Vikings into the Super Bowl conversation or sends them spiraling out of playoff contention? These are the questions that will define the next 2 weeks, and the answers are going to shape the rest of the season. If you believe Carson Wentz deserves to keep the job, drop a comment and tell us why. If you think it's time for J.J. McCarthy to take over, smash that like button and make your voice heard. And if you think this whole situation is about to explode into the biggest quarterback controversy in the NFC, hit that subscribe button and stay locked in, because this story is just getting started. And speaking of players whose health is being carefully managed, the final revelation about Christian Darrisaw's mysterious disappearance at halftime is going to give you a whole new perspective on how the Vikings are handling their most important pieces. And if you think that was wild, the last story is the perfect encapsulation of how the Vikings are managing this season, with extreme caution, surgical precision, and a long-term vision that prioritizes championship aspiration over short-term glory. Christian Darrisaw, the Vikings' elite left tackle and one of the most important players on the entire roster, mysteriously disappeared from the game at halftime during the London matchup against the Browns. And when he didn't return for the second half, fans immediately went into panic mode. Darrisaw is coming off a torn ACL from last season, and seeing him leave the field early raised all kinds of red flags about his health, his recovery, and whether the Vikings were being reckless in bringing him back to sue. But Kevin O'Connell put those fears to rest in his post-game press conference, revealing that Darrisaw's absence was part of a carefully planned load management strategy designed to keep him healthy for the rest of the season. Christian Darrisaw was part of a plan that we knew based on the high snap count last week. O'Connell explained, "We wanted to be smart with CD, and we didn't make it easy, as we had to navigate to the end of the game without one of the best left tackles in football. But I want to commend CD for his willingness to continue to grow and continue to be such a crucial factor for our team. I'm proud of him." That's the kind of forward-thinking approach that separates good teams from great teams, and it's exactly why the Vikings are 5-0 despite dealing with significant injuries across the roster. Darrisaw is too important to risk on a snap count that could push him over the edge, and O'Connell knew that managing his workload in London would pay dividends down the stretch. The Vikings entered that game without 3 of their starting offensive linemen, plus their backup center, and they were facing one of the best defensive lines in the league. The fact that they still found a way to protect Carson Wentz long enough to orchestrate a game-winning drive is a testament to the depth, coaching, and resilience of this team. But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. The The Vikings are heading into their bye week with a perfect 5-0 record, but they're also dealing with a quarterback controversy, a receiver who's battling maturity issues, a left tackle who's being carefully managed after a major injury, and a schedule that's about to get significantly tougher. After the bye, they face the Philadelphia Eagles, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Detroit Lions. 3 legitimate playoff contenders who are going to test every weakness this team has. If Darisaw isn't at full strength, if McCarthy isn't ready, if Addison slips up again, if the officiating continues to screw them over, any one of those factors could derail what's been a dream start to the season. But here's the flip side. If the Vikings can navigate the bye week, get healthy, make the right decision at quarterback, keep Darisaw fresh, and continue to hold players accountable, they have the talent, the coaching, and the mindset to make a legitimate Super Bowl run. This is a team that's battle-tested, that's won close games, that's overcome adversity, and that's built a culture of resilience and accountability. Kevin O'Connell has proven he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Justin Jefferson is playing at an MVP level, and the defense is quietly becoming one of the most dangerous units in the league. The pieces are there. The potential is undeniable. The question is whether they can put it all together when it matters most. So here's the final call to action for Viking Nation. If you believe this team is for real, if you think they can go all the way, if you're ready to ride with them through every controversy, every injury, and every battle, drop a like right now and let the world know that purple and gold runs through your veins. If you think the Packers, the Lions, and the rest of the NFC don't stand a chance against this squad, smash that subscribe button and join the movement. And if you want to see what happens next in the J.J. McCarthy versus Carson Wentz saga, drop a comment with your prediction, because this story is about to reach a boiling point. The bye week is here, the decisions are looming, and the next 2 weeks will determine whether the Vikings are championship contenders, or just another team that started hot and faded down the stretch. Stay locked in, stay loyal, and get ready, because the second half of the season is going to be an absolute war. And Viking Nation is going to be right there in the trenches, fighting every step of the way. Skol Vikings, and we'll see you on the other side of the bye.